Where you want me to go?
From mute. When you get into the Agile space, it's always good for everyone to understand what is expected from them. So as a Scrum Master, it's always good. You kind of work with your team, do like a little bit of workshop, test the knowledge to see, does everyone understand, what your role is as they are part of the Scrum team. So this is what we're going to discuss today, myself and Kirk. Kirk, do you have anything you want to add before we start moving through these slides that we prepared?
No, you could go ahead and start it. I guess maybe I could step in, when people have questions and stuff, and specifically for the product owner. But,
all righty.
Okay.
All right, but before we go to the first slide, does anyone have any questions? We have 30 people here. Does anyone have any questions ready for today? And we have some well-seasoned Scrum Masters here and product owners here, and I'm sure we might have some developers here. So as we're going through this, feel free to jump in, share your ideas and stuff, okay? All right, so Scrum Master. Who is a Scrum Master? Scrum Master is a servant leader who, assists the team to work using the Scrum and Agile framework as they're doing the work. And also you assist the team remove impediments as they're doing the work. You are a champion, you support and champion Scrum values. You are responsible for facilitating the process, meetings, and practices. And also one key role is you assist the product owner with the backlogs. You support the team being fully functional and productive. And also you shield the team from interference. You improve the life of the team and you encourage continuous improvement. Okay, so you coach development team to be self-organizing and cross-functional, and also you facilitate the removal of impediments and blockers. And you help to understand the need for clear and concise product backlog items. All right, so this is what I was able to put together about the Scrum Master. This session is meant to be a collaborative session, so I would want feedback from everyone. What are your thoughts about these roles, the responsibilities of the Scrum Master that I've outlined here? Anybody want to add any more? Like to mention names.
I have something to add. Looking at the Scrum Guide right now, for where it says self-organizing, it's been changed to self-managing for the teams.
Yep, that is true. That is true. That's a good point. Thank you, Ruth.
Welcome.
All right. So what Ruth, what do you get from when they tell you a team is self-managing? What do you get from it? What do you think about it?
When they talk of a team being self-managing, what I get from it is that you as a Scrum Master, you have been able to coach the team to a level where when you're not there, they can pick up responsibilities and do them by themselves without them being assigned. They are able to trust each other, respect each other, and get the work going without being, how can I put it? Yeah, without, like, let me say, for example, if the Scrum Master is not present, they are able to run the daily stand without by themselves. They're able to pick out tasks and do them, and also do the task of, let me say, a team member that is not present or maybe is absent for a day or got sick and all of that. So they're able to do their work without any how can I put it? They're able to do the work by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add a little bit to what you said, Ruth. This is one of the things that distinct us from project managers. We don't delegate stuff to the team. We kind of encourage them to pick up stuff as rooted on their own. We encourage the team to, be able to do their work on their own without being told what to do. So that's one thing about self-managing. You allow them to manage themselves. That's why a Scrum Master is not a manager, but we are actually 7 leaders who actually work hand in hand with the Scrum team. Do we have any more additions to the list that we say? AK, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's with reference to what she said. She's not wrong, but the way she presented it, the next question will be, so why do you need a Scrum Master? Looking at the way she presented that answer, it means you don't need a Scrum Master. If a team is self-organized, then we don't need it. So why do you want to be a Scrum Master on a team that is already self-functional or self-managed? So you want to be careful the way you present that answer, Ms. Ruth, because the way you sound it, they'll be like, oh, so then you don't need a Scrum Master, or you don't need to be a Scrum Master in that team. If that team is attained self-management, so why do they need you?
Okay,
so I just want us to be cautious. So I would rather propose, and I stand corrected, for self-management, for them to be like kind of a cross-functional team, in the sense that they have that responsibility of ownership, and say Craig is missing, Felix can do Craig's job, or Felix is missing, Ruth can do your job. So in the sense that they're becoming much more a little bit like a T-function team, in the sense that in the absence of one tester, one developer can still do his job. Because if you said they're self-managed and Scrum Master is not there, it means, guess what? We'll definitely become obsolete. So I stand to be corrected.
And you are absolutely right, AK. Who was that speaking?
Yeah, and then you can add that it's more like the team, they don't have to depend on management or anyone to assign work to them. So that's pretty much another definition for being self-organizing.
Sure.
And that is true. One other thing you could add to is, we could use an example, right? You could use like a football team, an American football team, or soccer that we also call football, right? These teams actually, they do have coaches, right? Without their coach, I mean, you could have a team who's really good, but they still need a coach to be able to guide them, to be able to do the things the right way, right? So that is one why we still need a Scrum Master. Even if you have a high performing team, you still need a Scrum Master who will be there to guide them, once in a while as they're going through the journey. So I could also add that to your explanations when you're talking about the roles and responsibilities of a Scrum Master.
Felix.
Go ahead.
All right, Ruth, you used an example for the daily stand-up, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a little bit tricky, because guess what? This question they always ask, do you need a Scrum Master to be in a daily stand-up? So you want to be careful with that example, because remember, the daily stand-up, it's for your team members. You don't necessarily have to be there. One of your roles is just to time box it. So if your team is self-managed in a way that they are at that level, you don't have to be there, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do, right? So let me put this back to you. If you have a highly managed team, as a Scrum Master of that team, what are your roles? Are you needed or not?
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
Can you come again, please?
So if your team is highly self-managed, as a Scrum Master of that team, what are your duties? Do you still have to be a Scrum Master of that team, or?
You still have to be a Scrum Master for that team.
Why?
Because even if they are self-managed or they're high-performing, you still have to coach them and guide them in some values and roles. it's not all about them being highly performed. You still have to guard them. That I know. I don't know if I stand to be corrected.
Bingo, you're 100% correct. That's the key word there, coaching. You're 100% correct. Based on the example Felix gave, that's football teams, for example, say Barcelona, they can play without a coach, right? But time and again, because it's agile, remember, it's not constant. Things are constantly changing, right? And when you have a team and they're performing, you are that person standing from the outside. You can actually what's the word? Impartially see what they can see because they're quite locked into their roles. But you standing from out, you could see what they can do better. You could propose to them better, right? It's just like you have a friend, the way they talk, the way they sound at times, they don't really hear themselves, but you hear them, right? You can help them make improvements at every time. So I just wanted to pick your brain on that a bit. All right, Felix, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your addition, AK. Does anyone want to add anything to the roles and responsibilities of a Scrum Master?
The Scrum Master keeps it positive.
Yes. Thank you for that, Humphrey. Anyone else before we move on? And for folks who are new here, when we say assist the product owner with the backlogs, so one of the responsibilities is you need to be working, hand in hand with your product owner when it comes to the maintenance of the backlog. So what you do is kind of advise your product owner on, techniques that they could use to prioritize the backlog. There's one popular, which is called a must code technique, which is must have, could have, should have, and won't have. Pretty straightforward, right? Basically states, what are the items on the backlog that we need, we should have, we must have, those that we should have and could have, and those that we won't have. So those are one of the techniques you could use. And also as a Scrum Master, you could set up refinement sessions, during your 2-week sprint, where you get the team together with the product owner to ensure that you have a ready backlog. So the team is always ready. We have ready stories to be able to pick up for the next sprint that you start. So basically, those are some of the responsibilities that you be having as a Scrum Master.
It was just my turn. I take care of her.
Also, apart from all these lists that is there, as a Scrum Master, you need to be researching, doing a lot of research to find ways to make your team be better. So you have to always be on your toes, ensuring that you're making sure your team is good. They have all what they need in regards to the right environments that they need when they're working. It says you assist with the facilitation of impediments or blockers, however you want to put it. So you ensure that the team, is hitting the, direction of meeting the sprint goal. So this is some of the responsibilities of a Scrum Master. Anybody else want to add one or two before we move on to product owner? And does anyone have any questions in regards to these responsibilities that we've listed here? All right. So we move on to the product owner. So, as the name says, this is the individual that owns the product. So basically, it is not a group of people acting as a product owner. The product owner is just one person, all right? And this person is responsible for defining the vision, the value of the product to maximize the value of the work of the team. The product owner attends all sprint planning meetings and also ensures that we have at least 2 sprints of ready stories. If you recall, when I was talking about the Scrum Master responsibilities, I spoke about backlog refinement sessions. So if you have these refinement sessions, it would ensure that you have at least 2, sprint of ready stories. Doris, did you have a question? All right. The product owner has to be knowledgeable, basically answering all questions regarding the backlog. I mean, he is the product owner, so he needs to make sure that all the product and services that the company has, he has enough knowledge to be able to answer whatever questions the team have during these refinement sessions, during these planning sessions, even during review sessions when sprint review, when you guys are expecting adapting the increment, and also he or she is responsible for the output and outcomes, and also clearly expressing product backlog items by putting it in writing user stories. Yes, we do know the product owner is in charge for writing user stories, but I mean, it's always encouraged that you work with your development team to be able to assist the product owner to write user stories too. The product owner manages and prioritizes the product backlog. So when we hear the product backlog, right, the person who is in charge, who owns the product backlog, is the product owner. So we should always have that in the back of our mind. Nobody owns the product backlog but him or her. The stakeholders don't own the product backlog. It is the product owner who owns it. So ensuring that the product backlog is visible, transparent, and clear to all, and shows what the Scrum team will work on next. All boils down to you having frequent backlog refinement sessions. During this time, that's when you ensure that the product backlog is ready. And this is the time where, as the Scrum team ask all required questions from the product owner in regards to the description of the user story, the acceptance criteria, ensure that they understand it, and estimating it and stuff. Hi, Malina, what's the question you have? You have your hands right.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you, Felix. I was wondering how, I know the product backlog is supposed to be visible to all. Like, how are we supposed to engage stakeholders because I believe it should be visible to the stakeholders as well, correct?
Yep.
So currently my PO, I don't see us having any sessions, or when I ask them, is it available for the stakeholders to view? He hasn't set up any sessions, so how can I implement that?
All right. I would allow Kirk to take this one since he's a product owner.
Yeah, I just have a question. Where, when you have like your user stories and stuff, where in your features, where is the features stored? Is it in Rally?
Jira.
In Jira, okay, in Jira. So he doesn't give access to anyone to see, or you don't have access to Jira when the stories are posted there, because he's supposed to make that available to the team at least.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, there's someone else was going.
Yeah, someone had unmuted themselves.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say that it is visible to the team and myself, but I just don't believe that, I wouldn't say it's not visible to the stakeholders if they want to see it, but how do we make that happen? Because I don't think they are viewing the backlog at this time. Do I have to set up any meetings or what?
Yeah,
I can help answer that question. Like,
okay,
what you would do is that you have to talk to your Jira administrators to add the stakeholders so they can be able to have access to your Jira board. You can also talk to the PO to get that done. When I used Rally, and we had a situation where the stakeholders did not have access to our Rally board and to see how the work progress was going. So I had to talk to the Rally administrators, and they made me as an administrator so I could add the stakeholders to, see what the team was actually doing. That was how I did it. I don't know if your company can give you access to do that, then mine did.
Okay, thank you for that point. Yeah, I do own the I have editor rights and so forth for the Jira board. So yeah, maybe I can do that.
So is it an access? Is it that they can't access it, or he's just not sharing it? Let them know that this is where the backlog is.
Yeah, I think he's just not sharing it. He mainly communicates with the stakeholders via email to get requirements and so forth. That's it.
Yeah, email is email is not good enough. So I never I really send out email. I just give them access to it. And then what I normally do is I'll have a meeting with the stakeholders so that, if they have any questions, I can address the issues at that moment. But yeah, I think your PO has to have a better communication with with the stakeholder.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I see two hands up. I don't know whose hand came up first, but I see Chooks.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I have a contribution in regarding to the lady's question. So it all depends on your organization, right? So it's first is what business value is it going to add for the stakeholders to assess your board? So because they might actually have other priority or other things they're concerned about. So for my organization, we actually connected Jira to Tableau, right? And we're probably monitoring future, how much feature is being completed. So they have access to a certain metrics regarding to the number of features completed, but they're not really concerned about the stories in specific. So like the features, we have like a feature board, a roadmap for those products that they have access to. So, but for the story level, I think it has to do specifically for your team. And completing those features might actually be more on the stakeholder side of stuff. So I think it all depends on organization and actually what business value does it add. And during your demo or your sprint review, you can actually talk about how many story points, if you guys are using burn down or burn up, whichever chart you use it, then you can identify how much stories you guys were able to complete. But on the story level, I think stakeholders looking at those stories might not actually add any value to them. So that's my own suggestion or experience bit of my own organization that I work for. So I just want to share that with you as well.
Okay, that makes sense. I have my husband chiming in on the background. He's a developer himself, so he agrees with what you're saying. That may be more something coming from a roadmap. It would be more beneficial for the stakeholders.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Ahmed, you had your hands up, but it's down.
Yeah, I think you just nipped it on the board with the response he gave. The features, the high-level description of each user stories are what the stakeholders mostly have access to, and they get to access it from time to time to see how all the relevant user stories affiliated to each features in each roadmap is being implemented from time to time, and that's why I had to lower my hands, and that's what I wanted to say, Helen.
All right, thank you, Ahmed. Humphrey?
No, I can't add much to that. Those guys spoke well. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, that was great input.
And also, if you allow me share one experience that I had recently, I didn't know how she did it, but I recently worked with one product owner that she, aside coming up with the typical user stories and she captured all our pictures in animated audiovisual form in order to explain to developers more clearly during meetings. So she has probably a little 5 minutes video she plays for them, and I want to say it's peculiar to the product. So after playing 5 minutes or 3 minutes, sometimes short video. She then pulls all the stories out affiliated to all these particular pictures, then explain in real time how it's attached to different segments of the video they must have watched. So, and this was a very, very helpful, practice that I learned with this under this product owner. And teams barely have less questions or clarity have questions to ask during refinement and stuff, and it's really helpful. And I don't know to any product owner or anybody here working, if they find it comfortable, convenient, they could, unfortunately, I was unable to actually learn how she was able to put those things together to help our team.
That's great, Ahmed. Kirk, I think that's one or two stuff for you to use the animations to make things clearer for your development.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I may have to start doing that then.
Yeah, and that actually adds to the next point, which is ensuring the team understands items in the product backlog to the level needed. So in this area we find ourselves, we just need to be creative, and also the last one is the PO accepts user stories when complete. All right, let me see, is this all that okay, Craig, do you have any you want to add in regards to the product owner?
No, I think you pretty much summed it all up.
Okay.
I just feel kind of lonely since I'm the only product owner here. I wish there was some more.
Yeah. Anyways, does anyone else have any inputs you want to add to the responsibilities of a product owner?
Yes. So, I think, do you have requirements gathering on those items as well? So I wanted to talk about requirements gathering. And so I've been in a situation whereby, so just to identify product owner and product manager, right? So I've been in an environment whereby product managers are also the product owners. So probably most of us, or we might have had experiences whereby we're dealing with someone who's called themselves product manager. They still have a customer facing relationship, right? And also specifically deals with the team as well. So in my present project now, they do have those meetings with our customers. So one of our customers are Toyota, right? So every single time I had this product owner that's actually doesn't really understand the product. So he doesn't really know how to gather those requirements. So I was asking if you guys have requirements gathering, because that was very difficult for my team to understand what exactly do they want to do. So we're always pivoting every single time. We had to have change requests every single time. So I think requirements gathering is another good thing a product owner needs to, that good skills they actually need to get as well.
Thank you for that, Chooks. And Ahmed has his hand up.
Yes, based on what you said, one other thing I learned from this product owner in question was that he's not just putting this animated or audiovisual animated video out there, but he's making sure it is business and customer-centric driven impact, meaning the impact of this particular product to the business and to the customer. And he ensured that every segment of the discourse points directly or indirectly to how this product is going to be impacting, the output of this product is going to be impacting on the customer or in the business. And that way, the team are invariably understanding how they need to tax the user stories, what they need to do in order to clearly relay back on how to implement each user story. So to what he said, I feel like if every product owner could emulate this, looking at impact, sometimes we get carried away with features, functionalities, user stories, and we start developing something completely different from what the customer or the business expects, or something a little bit different. So when we're looking at things from the point of impact, tends to be a little bit more helpful for all stakeholders to have to level set on the need of the product. So this approach, one could use this approach to really define, gather, and even implement, and even validate the implementation of this requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Go ahead, AK.
All right. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little bit mixed up with what Ahmed just said on the previous speaker. Maybe I didn't follow because I'm multitasking a bit, but I think he was talking about having a PO who doesn't properly understand the requirements. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Because yeah, looking at what Ahmed is saying and what he's saying, I think they're two different things. And in that case, if the PO or the manager doesn't understand the requirements, they can bring in an SME, subject matter expert, to help with that, right? So stakeholders know what they want, right? So you're not trying to make them understand what they want. And I stand to be corrected. I want a G6, a 12 V12 engine. I know what I want. Now you, the PO or the manager, you have to take this to your team to make them understand what I want and to build it the way I want. I don't know if I'm making sense here. Right?
No, you're making sense, because I can give you an example. Sometimes when I'll present something to my to the developers, and they may have some questions that I may not be able to answer right away. So what I normally do, I'll bring in
go back to
SME.
Stakeholder.
Correct.
Or you go get an SME.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So unless you're trying to have give the PO the power, which I think at times the project manager could have that power, that the team propose some certain things that can't work, and he takes it back to stakeholder and say, okay, what you're trying to do, these can't work because of this, due to the coding or the process, or the developers have said this is a better idea. They have that power to will the project to the direction they want it to go, right? So I'm just making sure I'm understanding them well. That's why I'm bringing up this point. So because at the end of the day, the requirement gathering, yes, you, the PO or the project manager, you do the requirement gathering, but your requirement gathering has to fit what the stakeholder has, and you have to be able to fine tune that. You're the middleman between the stakeholders and your team for them to produce what the stakeholders want. Am I correct or I'm wrong?
I think Ahmed is trying to respond to you too.
So I'm only saying, AK, from the standpoint of PO that doesn't understand the requirement and it's causing issue for the developer. I'm only suggesting, I think my point was just only suggesting one technique out of multiple other techniques to help possibly the stakeholder gain, not just stakeholder, even the product owner, even gain clearer understanding of what the business and even the end user wants. And to begin with, if you don't understand what the product is talking about, you wouldn't have the acumen to translate in whatever technique you're trying to use, probably this audiovisual thing that I just talked about, on how to put them together. You can't put it together. You won't be able to put it sufficiently together. But what
exactly, Ahmed, that's where I was going with it, because you said it's a technique. So if you don't understand something, you can't put it in a technique.
Right. So what this brings to mind is that it helps. It provokes some sort of conversation in line or outside what is needed, and that it's more like bringing to life the visual accessibility of what we are about to start working on, as perceived by, let's say, the product owner, for instance. So the product owner, I think she typically does this thing. She submits these features, these videos to the stakeholder ahead of time for review, for short review, before she start doing the proper productization and writing out user stories related to features and all of that. So subject to their approval or subject to their review, that's when she would then proceed to start developing the user story, prioritizing it, and making sure putting it in appropriate ways teams would clearly understand them. So I'm just saying it's some people learn by visuals, some people learn by pictures, some people just explain stuff to them, they're okay, or reading text, they're okay with it. But this particular approach focused directly on customer and business need, and bring it to life in a more visual form, in the more audiovisual form that people could relate with, stakeholders could relate with easily, and it gives a very clear, concise way of discussing about things towards gaining clarity before we start implementing stuff that we need to implement.
All right, I hope that explanation helped. Kirk, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, awesome. I mean, so from your point of view, based on this discussion that we've had so far, what are your thoughts? What are things that you want to add, take away?
I think pretty much AK said it well, and Ahmed kind of clarified what he was talking about. So I don't really have anything extra to add at this point.
Okay, all right.
Quickly, Mr. Kirk, is it possible, as a product owner, is it possible to kind of take us, how does that look when it comes to from gathering requirements from stakeholder and trying to convert that into epics or into features and bringing that down into stories, and then bringing that into the team, trying to also explain it to them? And also does that have anything to do with MVPs or your roadmap? Can you kind of take us maybe a journey through that process?
Okay, so as of the roadmap, right? So I'm more, okay, so the product that I work on, it's I'm in SAFE, right? So it's not just me alone that's working on it. I have other POs that's working on it. So the roadmap is not really developed by me. There's a portion of it, without getting into details of what this tool does. So there's, well, I'll just speak in general terms. So the tool is basically used to troubleshoot issues for customers, and there's two ways of troubleshooting. There's a way of proactively troubleshooting, and there's a reactive way of troubleshooting. So I'm focused on the proactive side, right? So when it comes to the roadmap, basically it's a contribution by all the POs. So I work with the stakeholders, and I ask them, what is it that they want to, what is it that they want from, what do they want the tool to do? And that's, and I'm used to, the good thing is I'm familiar with the tool because I used to be on the engineering side and I use it a lot. So when the stakeholders, when they come to me and they present something to me, it's easy for me to understand it. But the thing is, with this tool, the technology is always changing. So because they're on the engineering side, I may not be familiar with some of the new stuff, but because I'm used, I kind of understand the fundamentals. Anything new that comes about, I can easily understand it and put a feature together. So let's say they want this tool to let's say you want to take someone into space, for example, right? I have an idea of how, I'm just speaking general terms. I kind of have an idea of how it works. So I wait on the stakeholders to tell me how do they want to get there. And then from, once they give me an idea, then I start to break the feature into small user stories on how to get to what they want to see in this tool. So I don't know if I'm speaking too generic or not, if that makes any sense to you. So basically, Victoria, so what I do is, when the stakeholders, when they want something to be done, right, they may want like A, B, C, or D to happen when they use a tool. So I asked them, okay, what do they want? Where do they want to see it on the tool? You know, what tab? How do they want it to look? And from there, once I get an idea, then that's how I go about writing my user stories. And then when I present it to developers, if they're not clear on something, then basically what they'll do is, I'll clarify it for them. And if it's still not clear, then I'll bring the SME from, the stakeholder to come on the call with me, and then they address the questions right there and then. So does that kind of help?
Sure. Does anyone have any question in regards to, I think Humphrey has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm curious there, Kurt.
Yes.
So now you've done all that. The Agile team has taken up the news story. They developed the product. They have now something to that they produced. Tell us the handoff there. What does now the product owner do? Is there what functionality? What does that mean for the product owner?
Okay. All right, cool. So this is how it's done on my side. So with this tool, what ended up happening with me is that I have, hold on. I have more than one, I have several stakeholders that come to me to use this tool, right? And so there's different tabs. So once I explain to the developers, what each of the stakeholders want, then I basically go and I prioritize which feature, they should work on first, right? And once they start doing the features, one by one, they'll take the user story, they'll work on it. And once they work on it, then I do a system, I do a demo amongst all the POs. So we all do a PO and we demonstrate how that particular feature works. And then I accept it and it moves in, it gets placed into production. And then, at the next iteration, we then work, spend 2 weeks to work on a particular feature. Once that feature is developed, I go through the same process again. Is that the question you're asking?
Yes, exactly. So as you explained, you got the backlog ready. If you've got the requirements, have a backlog, you prioritize based on the features, based on feedback from the stakeholders.
Yes.
Now the Agile team works on that, then produces an increment of a product that you guys probably are working on. And there's the demo. So first, I believe you get an internal demo with the team, right? To make sure it is exactly what that.
Yes. There's an internal demo first. So there's an internal demo where the developers, they'll show me what they have, and then I'll ask them questions. And once I give them the okay, then I go ahead and do a demo to the rest of the POs and other stakeholders, etc. And I just want to mention one thing. I may prioritize the feature, but then my prioritization isn't final because it's the developers that have to do the work. So sometimes they'll look at all the requirements and then they'll let me know, okay, we may have a problem with getting this one done. Can we go ahead and maybe change a priority for a particular user story or feature? And then I'll go back to the stakeholders and I explain to them what's going on. And then, I get the sign off from there. And then I negotiate with my developers, and then, we can adjust the prioritization of any particular feature.
And on that note, Kirk, follow-up questions, right?
Yes.
When it comes to those priority, what techniques do you typically use when it comes to prioritizing the backlog? That's one. I know there's multiple of them, and if you can kind of dive into the techniques that you find to be most useful and also why. And then should I continue with the next question or one at a time?
No, you could continue.
Okay. And then how do you also deal with priority when a sprint starts to try to avoid those scope creep? How do you deal with it when it comes to pushing back with stakeholder and also trying to do that whole negotiation and planning with the Scrum Master and as well as the team? That's the second question. And the third question is, when it comes to bugs, how do you handle that? And what do you think are best practices to be able to handle bugs or even tech debt as well? And the fourth question is, when it comes to production validation, what happened? How does that look like? And how do you handle it as a product owner before, I'm sure before it goes to like release management or any aspect like that?
Okay. All right. So let me just address the first question. So how I prioritize it. What I do is so what my product manager wants us to do is when I get the feature, I have to give it, I give it a business value, right? So I don't use like any, like Moscow or that. I look at the features and I basically say, okay, what value is this thing bringing to the business? And I may give something like I give it from a scale of 1 to 10. So what I do is I look at what the stakeholders want, because sometimes it may be a feature that's it's nice to have, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that it's something that I'm going to spend time. If it's not bringing value to the business, then I'm not going to rate it a high priority. So how for every feature that I get, I basically look and see, okay, what business is it bringing to? I mean, what value is it bringing to the business? It's not because the stakeholders that I deal with, they may want something that, okay, this is nice to have, but I'm not going to spend time, too much effort working on. For example, I had a feature where the management team, they wanted to have like a little tab that basically tells, well, I don't want to go too much into detail. They basically want to have like an easy button to press the button and give them like stats of customer issues and how they were resolved. That item has been in my backlog for a long time, and basically it's not a high priority. So I do my prioritization on how the value that it's going to bring to the business, and that's basically it. So there's no specific technique that I use for that. And what was the second question, Victoria, that you had?
Okay, and the second question was like how to deal with scope creep with stakeholders and also working with Scrum Master and as well as the team. And what suggestion would you even give Scrum Master to be able to like do that whole negotiation with the product owner? Because I'm sure there are Scrum Masters in here and sometimes that can be a difficult situation, but do you have like guidance on what you think that we should take in, especially given from a product owner perspective?
Okay. All right. As of scope creep, right? It depends. I mean, this is not like waterfall. Well, I think in waterfall, right, you try to prevent scope creep, but I believe in agile. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I do sometimes have scope creep, right? And it depends. Sometimes I will tell the stakeholders, to just kick rocks, that, this is too late in the game. But I don't want to say that all the time. I don't reject something. So there's a product that I'm working on right now, right? And it has a high visibility. So I kind of have to take scope creep, but to a certain point. And this item that we're working on, because it has such a high visibility, and it's basically it's a high value item. It's going to bring a lot of business to our company. So what I did during the PI planning, I anticipated that we would definitely be getting scope creep. So what we did is we left wiggle room for the developers to be able to take on extra things. So what we're doing is that we're proactively working on developing this product. And so we know that what we're offering them right now is just like a little test bed where the end users, they could go ahead and they can test it out. And the thing is, because they don't know 100% what they want, as they test it, they see, okay, this is, we need some enhancements, but we kind of prioritize between the enhancements and the bugs. The bugs, we want to address it because we want to make sure that at least the basic portion of that product is working. So the bugs it's not a scope script, but like any new feature that they want, the enhancements, there's somewhat of a scope creep, but not quite scope creep. So I kind of go ahead and accept it. And what I do is, anytime I do something like this, I kind of I speak with the Scrum Master as well. And since my team, the developers are aware that we're going to be getting, scope creep items coming in, we accept it for now. But it's only because of this product that we're working on has a high visibility. But in a normal situation, I don't really take scope creep. And that's something that I address to my Scrum Master.
Okay, and the third question was in regards to bugs. How do you guys handle bugs? And how, in your perspective, what are some things that you have noticed have created bugs within the dev team or the product itself?
Okay.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Victoria, do you mind explaining scope creep to those who don't understand? I mean, I'm just because Ted may have spoken and spoken, but I'm very sure the new Scrum Masters or those who are still to become working Scrum Masters might not understand what that means in the entire explanation he's given. I'm just saying.
Okay, gotcha. So normally scope creep is and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Victoria. So we normally come up, the end user, they give us a feature that we based on what the requirements are, we create a feature for them, right? And so once PI planning begins, that feature, everything is locked in. We've got the feature and all the requirements set, and we put up on our for each iteration, we have like a set amount of user stories, right? And so once the PI starts, right, sometimes the end user will just jump in and say, hey, there's something else that we want you all to do for us. And that's kind of like a scope creep. It's something that they didn't ask for in the beginning. They just kind of throw it in and they want you to, they kind of force you to try to add that new feature in without, you even having time to go through to understand exactly what they're looking for. So, Victoria, is that pretty much sums up what the scope creep is? It's basically they're just like adding new requirements that they didn't address before. I've started my PI planning.
Yeah,
but let me,
no, it's
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was gonna also point to what Jorge added to the chat, but go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in the light of Scrum Masters, for those who are still out there trying to become Scrum Masters, I'm going to speak for myself as a Scrum Master. I always like to use myself as an example because other Scrum Masters have other experiences, I guess. Now, scope creep in my environment or in an Agile environment that I work in, if I'm looking at it based from the Scrum Master side, is when after we have done our sprint planning, for example, with the product owner and the developers, and then we have already prioritized our cards or our user stories or our issues, whatever you call it in your environment, and then we are about to start the sprint, that we already know that this is the amount of storage, this is our capacity, and this is what we are going to be able to move and pull into that sprint and work on those stories for the two-week sprint that we have already timed boxed. So when we start the sprint, every story that was already moved in the sprint backlog, that is already what the sprint, that's the capacity and commitments that we have engaged into. Now, while the sprint is ongoing, anything that comes after that was never initially prioritized or been sprint planned and has to be moved into that sprint, then the burn down chart or the metrics is going to generate something that's called the scope creep. Now, bear in mind, scope creep might either be that we are removing something out of that sprint or we're bringing something into the sprint. Depending on what changes you're doing, that is going to generate a scope creep in your metrics. And that you can see it on your burn down charts. Or I guess, I don't know, I don't use burn up charts, but I don't believe that scope creep equally is being indicated on burn up charts. So that's technically what I wanted to just explain. In the line of a Scrum Master, that is where we observe scope creep, when we are doing our metrics or when we are visualizing our metrics and doing the workflow. So to avoid or limit that, just like what Keck said, sometimes it's something that is really of top priority. There's nothing we can do, and it has to be worked on. You can do what we call trade-offs just to ensure or to limit your velocity or your metrics to be affected at the end of the sprint. You can do trade-off as per the story points that you had initially already estimated to the story that you're pulling out and the story that you're swapping to bring into that sprint. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I just thought I should chip in that.
Yes. You said it well, Lois. Yeah.
And
scope creeping, it can mess you up. And that's why, as I said initially, I normally just turn them down. But in some situations like the one that I am in right now, it's something that was expected and we knew it was going to happen. So that is the reason why we left enough wiggle room for us to add on any scope creep that comes up.
That being said,
yeah, you were asking Victoria about bugs, right?
Yeah. And before we move on to the just to add to what Lois mentioned as well, it's mainly the burn down chart and not necessarily the burn up chart. And also as Scrum Masters too, it's important to reflect on those burn down chart on a daily basis before you even go into your stand up, right? Because that's really going to help you when it comes to really having an understanding of what the team are working on and what has happened during that day. It also helps you to know if the team are really actually updating their work, right? And also shows that, hey, I'm actually here for you guys. So if something, whereas maybe the product owner added something, even without you guys notice, right? Because sometimes product owner do things like that. They will add a sprint in a story into the sprint without even notifying anyone. So being mindful of your burn down chart can help you point out things like that and even bring it up to your meeting and make sure everyone is accountable and also our understanding of what we're trying to do, right? That's part of you helping to coach the team and becoming more mature or agile, if that's what we want to call it. So just wanted to add that as well. And the other question was in regards to bugs.
Okay, how do we handle bugs?
Yes, and how does that come based on your perspective as a product owner?
Okay, so there's two type of bugs, right? When the product is moving to production, right? There is once it leaves my group and it goes into production and it's been there for a while, the end user they open up a ticket, right, for that bug, but that ticket it doesn't go to my team. It first goes to there's a separate group that handles it, right? So they would have to take a look and see if they can fix it. And if at some point they're unable to fix the code, then they will send it to my developers. And what we normally do, depending on how much work we have, we can either address that bug in our current iteration, or maybe we plan for it in another release. And what causes bug? And then there's another bug. Prior to, for example, right now, we work on a UAT in the UAT, right? If there's any bug related to UAT, then my team would have to fix it before it gets into production. And right now, there is a bug that we're working on. Basically, what happened is my company had bought off another company, and they were using their cloud platform. So now they've sold the company off. We have a few months to migrate our data to another cloud platform, and we started doing the migration. But what happened now is most of the items my team worked on, they're all, a lot of them are failing. So it has generated a lot of bugs. And because of that, current situation right now, we're working to address those bugs, because if we don't fix those bugs now, then all the work that we've done in the past 2 years is going to go down the drain. Yeah.
And what is what causes bugs? I don't know if you've already explained that.
Anything can cause a bug for us. Let's say, because we share this product with other POs, someone could write a code that may cause an issue for my team. And that usually happens when the developers don't communicate, because for the most part, all the developers, they communicate with each other, right? So there could be maybe something that another team may do, like some type of migration, and that could sometimes cause our work to have a bug in it. Or generally, if the code is not written properly, later on, once the item goes into production, we start to see issues. And sometimes it could be just a bad coding that caused the bug.
Thank you. And then I think the next question was, did we already? Production validation. What is that? And how does that look like?
Like a production validation, like a product validation, right?
Yeah. Prod val.
Okay, so you say product validation. What I normally do is, I don't know if I'll call it a product validation, but it's more like, to me, it's like a feature validation. Is that, I don't know if that's the same thing of what you're asking for.
And I think it's kind of the same thing in the sense that we're ready, the stories are completed, right? Either part of the feature or part of the product, whatever the case may be.
Okay, yes. Okay, so normally what I do is, I will do the initial testing just to validate that it's working fine from my end. And then after I'm done with my testing, then, basically the end user, they have access to UAT, and they go ahead and they also do their own testing. And once they get the okay, then normally that's when we put it into production. And then once it's in production as well, then they continue to use it and they test it. And, if they see any bugs, then they'll report it. But all the validation, it's normally done by me before, I pass it on to the end user to test.
Awesome. And then one last question. You mentioned about business value, right? Using business value to kind of add, I guess, value to, or the priority of the stories or whatever you guys are working on. I know when it comes to SAFe, right, they typically use 1 to 10. Can you kind of provide an understanding of what does those numbers, what do they mean? And how do we know something is a 1 versus something is a 10? What are there like criteria you guys use to determine that?
For us, I know we're supposed to be like, extremely agile and follow things to the T. But it's like one of the principal engineer said to us that those numbers are just, they're just, I could tell you what constitute a 10. There's no straight answer for it, because even for us, we don't even know. But a 10 would be something like, for example, the product that I'm working on is for 5G, right? And from a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 would be something that would drastically reduce the amount of call-ins we get from customers. So if we're working on something that can reduce the amount of, like poor service, like maybe like a slow speeds or whatever, if we can reduce that and we don't see a lot of tickets coming in, then something like that could be a 10. So if we can, so on the proactive side, if there's something, a feature that the end user, is bringing to the table that will reduce the amount of trouble tickets that is created by our customer, then something like that would be a 10. A 9 would be, it'll be something that will make the job easier for the engineers on the floor to troubleshoot. So that'll be a 9. And then, when it comes to like 8, 7, 6, those numbers, it doesn't really it doesn't really matter. There's no right way. I just basically, I just have to give a number. And that's it. So if something is really, if it's something is really like a high value, then I'll give it a 10 or a 9. For anything else, it's more like it's a judgment call for me.
Okay. And I see Ruth and Chukwuebuka.
And Chuck's, right? Yeah.
So it was Chuck's hand that was up first.
Okay.
So cool. Have Chuck to go.
Okay, hi guys. So based on this conversation regarding to the business value, and you just said something regarding to it. It's more about conversation, right? Just the same way a Scrum Master conversates with you as a product owner about what value those items you have in the backlog brings. That's the same way a product manager or a product owner have a conversation with the business owners as well. So prioritizing or giving these items numbers, these are just probably set standards. All this boils down to organization and how they want to do their thing. Because I guess when you were thinking about, the developers that are on the floor and stuff like that, we are using that references based out of your own experiences, right? So which actually boils down to your own organization. So what I can chip in into this whole thing about the numbers thing, it all depends. You can say, okay, a medium, a large, and an extra large. You can say any numbers can actually stand for it. So all boils down to what exactly the communication point between you and whoever wants you to implement any new functionality. Then you can say, okay, to you, what do you think is best for this situation? Then they can tell you, okay, I want this one to happen first, or I want this one to happen second. And in regarding to another thing that I've understand and have helped with my product owner is having a condition of satisfaction for each item. For example, you want to implement new thing. So apart from the acceptance criteria for those items, what are the conditions of satisfaction? So when would you say you are satisfied with this whole new functionality? So most organizations, again, like I said, have what works for them. You might just use that approach, and I think it really works magic. As a product owner, you can say, okay, these new features, business owners, what exactly will you see that will make you say, yes, this thing that you want me to do, or you want the developers to implement, or you want the developers to develop, what exactly would you see? And you say, yes, I'm definitely satisfied by this new functionality. I think that would be very, very helpful to anyone who is trying to help their product owner as well. So that's just my 2 cents on this.
Yeah, and another thing I want to throw into, so Victoria, normally what we do is for the business value, for the most part, it's monetary. It's monetary. So we want to know, like, how much money is it going to be saving the company? And sometimes it's not really always about money. It could be how much time is it going to save the average engineer, to work on to resolve a customer issue. So those are the things. And so it's not everything that that we work on what's going to have a monetary value. So that's another condition we use to give a business value.
All right. Can we Chi? Can you go?
Or was it Ruth?
Oh, Ruth before Chi, sorry.
Okay, please, I have a question. My question is, once the work that your developers have once the work has been released, right, to production, how will you ensure that your team measures and demonstrate the value back to the business?
Yeah, so that doesn't really, I don't really have a way of measuring that, whether or not the business value has been delivered, right? I don't really have a way of measuring that. So normally, where I would get that information from, if my team wants to know, what I would do is I'll go back to the stakeholders and ask them to provide some maybe some hardcore numbers, because they would be the ones that would provide that for us.
Okay, thank you.
And so another thing that we do, okay, so that's on the monetary side, but on the time saving portion, there was a tool that we developed, right? And it's to see, like, as a time saving, what we do is there's like a click there's something, I guess we use something like called click stream. So, we would kind of record the clicks that like an engineer will use. So for every item that we create, we want to see how much is a team really using. So based on the usage, we can calculate how much time that they're saving, the company resolving an issue. So there's a way we can measure, usage of the tool. But when it comes to the monetary value, it's not something that we can measure and give feedback on the business value. It comes from the management team that works with the stakeholders.
All right. Thank you for that, Craig. Let me just go over to the chat. I know some folks might not be checking it out. So Lois just said exactly. First, Victoria said customer feedback is also a metrics. And Lois said exactly. And to add, I believe that it applies to product validation, which is as per the definition of done and acceptance criteria that was allocated to that particular increment. All right. Chi, you have your hands up.
Yes, to Kirk, I just wanted to ask, do you ever have conflicts with Scrum Masters? And what kind of conflicts exactly do you usually have, and how do you resolve them? Like if you have a scenario, that you can share with us. Thank you.
Okay, so when I've had 3 Scrum Masters so far. So the first Scrum Master I had was maybe when I first started, and he was around for about 2 months. The other Scrum Master was over like a year and change. And my current Scrum Master, I'm sharing with another PO. And I've never had any kind of conflict with my Scrum Master. And the reason why I don't is because I'm always in communication with my Scrum Master. My Scrum Master and my developers, they're all overseas. They're in India. And we use a WhatsApp channel, believe it or not. So I'm in constant communication with my Scrum Master and my development team. So there's never a time where I've ran into any, with any issues with my Scrum Master, because I think communication is the key. So if something is not clear, my Scrum Master reaches out to me, and vice versa, I'll reach out to my Scrum Master.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you.
And another thing is, I guess I've heard bad news. I mean, I've heard bad stories about a product owner. I'm not a bossy person or a pushy person. I pretty much, give credit to my team when I'm doing demos, and even my Scrum Master. So, like I said, having that open communication path makes things run smoothly.
All right. Also, there's been some acronyms thrown around here, one which is UAT. Lois actually put in the chat and explained that UAT means user acceptance testing. And the recent comment here is Worthy Winner says, tell your organization we have good Scrum Masters onshore. Awesome. So we could move on with the presentation. Is everyone okay with the product owner responsibilities? Olabishi, DOD means definition of done. And we have DOR, which is definition of ready. So these are acronyms that you'll be getting. All right, so the Scrum team is made up of the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the developers. So the developers are self-managed. It's not self-organized already, but self-managing, which basically means they manage their own work. No one tells them how to do it. They optimize efficiency and effectiveness. They are cross-functional. When we say a team is cross-functional, mainly means they have all the skill sets needed, to get a product to done. So all the necessary you need in your team to be able to work on your product to get it to done. That's what I mean by a cross-functional team. They are accountable as a team. conduct daily Scrum. Basically, what it's saying, the daily Scrum is owned by the developers. Yep, could have some Scrum Masters facilitating, but it is their event. Sorry, oops. There are no titles in the development team. Everyone on the team is equal. If you are a working Scrum Master, working product owner, I mean, I know you would feel like, I mean, we have senior developers, we have lead development, the lead developers and stuff, but the main goal is to ensure that, you know, everybody, we all feel the same, we all feel equal. Worthy Winners, you have a question? What's the question, please?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for this session today. It's very inspiring. So my organization is so much concerned about velocity and capacity. Like they just want it to come out like superb. My manager is talking about it. I don't have a peer, I have a project manager and assistant project manager. So there's a big project manager and he has a technical background in the assistant project manager. So they are so much talking about velocity. So capacity and velocity, of course. So I want to help, but the rate at which they are coming with it, I'm feeling like I'm not even doing anything. Like, I mean, when the sprint starts, we want to be able to get our capacity, you know, and velocity. But in the middle of the sprint, people don't have work to do. And how else can I know that they're idle or they have bandwidth apart from checking with them and looking at the Jira board, you know? So they're asking me like, who are the people that have bandwidth? I cannot know. They just ask in a meeting, like I have people scheduled with me, but we already presented the, you know, capacity to them, to my manager, and of course that project manager who is like from business, who is like demanding. So I presented that to them, but they keep asking me, they keep talking about it a lot. They ask me how many points people have for the rest of the sprint. How many do I think they can do for the rest of the sprint? Is it supposed to be like that? Am I supposed to know how many points they can do for the rest of the sprint?
Can we have somebody, any working Scrum Masters, try to help out?
Yeah, can I help out with that? Yeah, okay. Please. Okay, great. First off, you just, as a Scrum Master, right, you need to ask these key questions about what exactly is the project and what exactly they want to work on. So do they have a certain milestone that they have to meet, right? Or the certain timeline? So it depends. Do you guys do release planning or you do PI planning, right? So in the initial stage of whichever project you have, that conversation needs to come in. So you want to build something, okay? How long does it go? Is it going to take? How much time does the customer want you guys? What time of the year does the customer want you guys to actually get this thing out on production, right? That conversation now will prompt how much work that work is going to do, how ambiguous it is. Then you would now ask that question, okay, which team, what are the teams that are going to work on this? You guys need to determine the risk, the dependencies as well. What are the objectives, right? So because without getting this, you can start working on it and you end up realizing that the number of developers that you have cannot actually accomplish that specific mission that you have. All these high level things have to be determined first. Then you can now say, okay, in this case, have they actually done something similar in the future? In the past, then they can tell you, okay, we've done this. This was the amount of numbers of teams that individuals that we have in this team. We needed to have someone who has React, knowledge of React or C# or whichever coding knowledge that they needed for that specific product, right? Then you can know if you guys need a UI UX designer or you guys need a QA person. So all these questions need to be asked. Then you can now determine, and you can now talk to whoever the project manager is and say, okay, now we've identified what resources we need. Then you as the Scrum Master needs to talk about communicating with whoever the dev manager is now. That communication has to go down to the developers and say, okay, for the next 6 months, what's your capacity? how much work can you do? Then if they tell you, okay, I'm going to be away or I'm going to be available, or whichever contractors you guys have, then you can now start breaking it down based on the iteration or sprints. How many sprints is gonna take for you guys to accomplish that specific project that you guys have.
Capacity for 6 months?
You can, I'm saying PI planning or release planning. It all depends on what exactly. If you guys have not done any planning in the beginning, that means you need to do a planning, a PI planning or a release planning. So it all depends on the environment that you're in. If you're on a safe environment, if you guys are running a safe shop, that means you guys have to do a PI planning for the next probably 3 months. But if you're doing release, it might be just the 6 months. Depends on how many iterations you want to run or how many sprints it's going to take to actually accomplish that specific project. That's what I'm trying to say. Then you can identify per sprint what's the velocity of the team. So first of all, you need to know the total. Then you can now start putting it individual sprints and seeing how much increment you guys can deliver out on that specific project or that specific initiative that you guys have. So, but if you don't have that high level conversation, there's no way it will be easy for you to get the velocity that the organization needs for that specific project.
Oh, wow.
All right. So
thank you.
Duke said a lot, and he said one thing: it depends on the environment that you're in. Mind you, we have folks here. Not everybody here works in a safe environment. We have folks who work just Scrum, and we have folks that work in safe environments. So that is where Chooks is coming, talking about PI planning and all this stuff. So Worthy Winners, which environment do you work on? Do you work in a safe environment or you work in just a Scrum environment?
It's a safe environment, but I met them at the middle of the project. So that PI planning thing, I don't know what happened.
Okay, so I guess when you joined, they had already had your PI planning. Go ahead, Kate. Kate,
Yes.
before you go, let's hear from Humphrey. Humphrey's hand came up when Chooks was talking. So
yeah, and I could speak on both versions. Basically, what you have, right, is hold on for a second. Anyway, sorry about that. So basically, I'm trying to catch my thoughts here. When well, one thing to understand is like none of these stories come by surprise. The backlog is what it is. However, the Agile team does have an idea of where the pathway, what the architecture, or what the stream of value that's being presented. They're most of the time they're well acquainted with what's expected for them to produce, be it in a PI or even in a Kanban, where you do have a triage, that they have a working triage that they keep, adding things to, reprioritizing, and continue to dish out value. So the teams are hardly a surprise, even when they're new asks. Even when there's new things coming in, there's always an expectancy. A good Scrum Master will always adapt for that or make sure that they can allocate if it's within the sprint and they're doing Scrum, they can allocate the capacity. And in another total Kanban situation, at least you can, it's going to be priority anyways. It could be reprioritized, things can be taken off and put back or what have you. None of these are, a surprise or, the new ask is something that needs to be redeliberated or anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure that, those who are listening understand that, in a truly agile environment, be it safe or wherever, you could actually, the Agile team could be acquainted enough to know what's expected and go for it.
I just wanted to ask a question because you're emphasizing in the chat, I'm talking to Wealthy Winners, you're emphasizing in the chat that your organization is so peculiar about the velocity and the capacity, and they expect you to make it work. I mean, like they expect you to be a magician, basically. Now, the question I'd ask you, first of all, what software do you use in tracking your metrics? Is it Jira or Rally? Because I don't know.
Jira.
Okay, Jira. So, and then the next question is that you said when you came in, you met them already in the middle of ongoing sprints, which means they've had sprints before you got there, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so have you tried to check the velocity history of their sprints? So have you tried to like estimate? Have you tried to estimate like how much work in as a medium estimation based on your observation of the velocity metrics that you're looking at, that you think that is what they can be taking in from sprint to sprint based on the historical data that you have seen on the velocity chart? Have you done that?
So you mean like putting the one from the historical data and their capacity to make it
just like
match?
observing, like, because when you look at the velocity chart, right, in Jira, you can, based on those the drafts that you see, you can be able to estimate how much work they'll be able to complete, or how much work they can pull in, and that you're certain that worst case scenario, it will not be too much that will be left over, but that it will be just the right amount that they'll be able to complete in a particular 2-week sprint. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. I've tried to do that. I guess.
So how many sprints have you done that?
One sprint. Let me say.
So it's not enough because you just came in. That's just one sprint, and you're just trying to catch up with everything with historical data. So you want to explain to your organization that, look, I just came in. You need to give me at least a couple of sprints to do my analysis, and then I'll come up with the right, because I'm still studying the team and I'm still trying to work with them based on the analysis that I've seen from what the previous, I don't know if the previous Scrum Masters before you, or from what the previous sprints have told you based on what you're reading. So let them give you a little bit of time. And then after you've done like 2 more sprints, then you might be able to really estimate and know based on your own sprint planning and based on your own estimations as per what you have gathered based on the 3 sprints. Then you might be able to come up with exactly what velocity you think that that team is able to work with moving on. Well, that's my own take. Maybe some other experienced Scrum Masters might have other opinions to chip in, but if I was in your shoe, that's what I'll first of all try to work with. Then I'll take it from there, because you're not a magician, and the velocity can always be the same all the time. It changes based on the user stories, or based on the capacity, and also based on the workload that they're able to work with regards to the risk, the complexity, and everything that you know that surrounds when you're doing your estimations. So I guess they need to give you at least 2 more sprints, just to do your analysis, because it's a data it's something you are trying to analyze, and you cannot analyze it only from 1 sprint. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you, Lois. Lady Anne, you had your hands up, but you put it down. I was gonna call you when I saw your questions in the chat already. So
yeah, I was trying to understand the question, please, because I think I've had different answers that really don't. I don't know. What's the question? What is I ask? Wealthy winners, please, if you don't mind.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. The question is about how to help the team get better with that velocity, working on their capacity. So like I said, they'll just ask me, the manager just come in and say, how many points, how many people have a couple of points in the middle of sprints. So I have those numbers listed on that Excel thing. I don't know how to go count it out and say this person has 2 more points to work for the rest of the sprint. And then yes. And what else did she ask me? She asked me that the work is not moving. She wants to increase the velocity, basically. Let me say that.
All right. So what I get from
it doesn't make sense.
Go ahead, Lady Anne.
What I get from here is a kind of micromanaging. Okay. It's like your manager or whoever is trying to use velocity as a measure of productivity, which is totally an anti-pattern. Velocity cannot be used to measure how much the productivity of your team based on the number of stories they're doing or the quality of what they're doing. If you use that route, then you're going to mislead your team. The velocity is just a guide into how much they can commit to every sprint. So if your managers are, and remember that the team works as a whole. If you're calculating the capacity of the team, although you are bringing in individual work, you are basing the total capacity of the team to measure, to have like a relational, you're trying to relate it to the velocity to see how much they can pick up based on their capacity. For example, if you have 7 developers on your team and all of them are present all 10 days of a 2-week sprint, then it means if you want to take out the 20% or 30% buffer time and the focus factors, the number of hours that they spend in meetings and stuff like that, then each developer will end up with maybe like 4 hours or 5 hours of development time in a day. Now, this is what you put together to compare with how much they have to take based on their previous velocity, the velocity of the past, the average velocity, for example. Now, if you have 7 developers that are present for all those entire days and are working 5 hours, then if the next sprint you have 6 developers that are present and 1 is PTO, you don't expect them to commit to that same velocity. You don't, because now you have a reduction in human resource. You don't expect them to commit to the thing. So don't let your managers ask you to use velocity as a measure. Asking how many points this developer has left is wrong. You have a team. This is the velocity that you have committed to. This is their capacity. They are working as a team. Now, if you want to know when the developers are not working because you are not there, you are not seeing what they are doing at the level of their local environments, all you see is the results that they write on their stories because you're not exposed to their environments. How you can tell if they are working is the updates that they are putting in those stories. If you're using Jira, there's the comment section. Every time you come to your daily stand-up, that if they're actively working on a story, that comment section needs to be updated. So if today is the 19th and you see a story that they have actively been working on and it was updated 3 days ago, it means there's a problem with that story. They are either stopping to work on that story and have picked something else, which now you have to bring in your work in progress limits. How many stories are they effectively working on at the same time? You have to limit that. It's not only limited in Kanban, but you can actively limit that on a Scrum board as well. Then when you go to your burn down chart, as Vicky was trying to explain, the burn down chart can tell you a lot of information about your team, where they are stuck, where they are not working, where they are not closing stories, and a lot of information. That's why your burn down chart, and if you have something like a sprint health, those 2 metrics are very important in your daily stand-ups. Look at them every day. It's visible even to the developers. Let them look at it, and then they tell you where they are impeded and stuff like that. So you need to let your management know that velocity is not a measure of productivity. It's just a commitment into how much they can take in. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that before. I wonder the atmosphere telling her that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Lady Anne, and thanks for your question, worthy winners. All right, so let's go ahead with the presentation. We have just 10 minutes remaining, but it's just we just have a little more to go. So since you're already on the developers, they were responsible for estimate. They own the sprint backlog, and they collaboratively create the sprint backlog also. And they explain how to accomplish the sprint goal and track remaining work on daily basis. And that goes on to what Lady Anne's points, that during daily stand-ups, when you're going through the stories that are in progress, you need to work with your developers to ensure that they update their comment section. Okay, I just wanted us to complete this. I know when Lady Anne was talking, Lois was trying to also jump in. Lois, do you have?
No, I was just agreeing with Lady Anne because, like she was saying, it's not like it's related because it's based on the question that Wealthy Winners was saying, and I can I can relate to when she says that the environment, and when they are saying it's not easy. She's a new Scrum Master, I believe, in the environment, and you can't just go, and you need to first, start gradually, a gradual process to be able to at least make them trust that, see, this is how the situation is, by coaching, obviously, because you can't just go stand up and say that, look, this is an anti-pattern, blah, blah, blah. I understand what Lady ends, all what she said, I agree. But I was just trying to say, I don't know if the organization is looking at that in the light of success, or they just want to have a view of what's taking place, or what's going on when it regards to the
success.
It's regards to okay, because I didn't know if that was, I thought you wanted to just know or the visuals about it. So I was just agreeing to what I am. Yeah. It's not like I was just making it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lois. And also there's one thing that Worthy Winner said when she started. She said in her environment, they don't have a product owner. It's a project manager. So basically it could be like a waterfall. They're now moving into Agile. So maybe, I hope, if I'm mistaken, correct me what the win is. It could be that way, because the way—
You're correct. There's no product manager. There's no product owner.
Okay, so you guys are now moving into Agile. I guess that's why these kind of questions are popping up. And as Lady N says, it's an opportunity to coach this project manager and this project owner, on some of the best practices. And Lois's points to is you need to find out the why exactly, they need all these questions. So let me go to the chat. Lady N says, exactly, Grace, when you start basing on velocity. Okay, Grace agreed with what Lady N said about velocity not being how we measure success. Imagine a team with a high velocity working hard on a product that will have zero value to the customer. High velocity, zero value. So the focus is the value delivered. Is the customer getting the value from the product that you have? The team has worked on, value. So Lady N was agreeing with this too. When you start basing on velocity, you push the developers to rush with code and introduce bugs into the system that reduces quality. But maybe you have to protect your team. If you let things stray from the beginning, it will be difficult for you to change. Hi, Ahmed. Before Ahmed, you go, we have just 7 minutes remaining. So I'm just giving you 2 minutes to add your point, and then we go to retrospective. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I really don't have much to add with what has been said, because Lois and I think the other speaker, exhausted all that needs to be said on this. However, I just want us to always have one thing in mind here. Starting with any organization, we had to always try to do some kind of especially when we're newly just starting, just like in the case of the lady that we're talking about, we need to take our time to understand what has been the pre-existing practice. What are those norms that you met on ground, and why? And who are these people initiating these things? You need to understand all this, because we can't just walk into all these organizations and start dumping transformation or adoption or whatever needs on their laps without necessarily understanding what the journey has been so far. So, and then that's exactly, because to the question of velocity, obviously this project management teams talking about capacity, velocity as a yardstick to success, they obviously been engaged in a certain practice, and which may be a little bit hard or difficult for you to just come around and just start. So you need to work with them, try to get clear sense, ask relevant questions, and then you'll be able to know where to focus your observation. Try to learn what they even want to accomplish from their practices, if need be, and then you know how to approach whom and whom not to approach, and what strategy to adopt in helping them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Chooks, I'll give you just 2 minutes. We have a hard stop. Go ahead.
Nice one, Ahmed. And also what I just want to say is don't come and break something that is already working, right? Don't come and say, oh, you want to come do this and do that. It's quite complicated. And again, always get one understanding, okay, what exactly does the business want to achieve? So there are 4 things I always tell every new Scrum Masters. Quality, productivity, responsiveness, and predictability. Those 4 key points are always, each or one or 4 of them can be an organization goal for their development team. Do they want to make sure they focus on quality software? Have they been having issues of defect coming up when the functionality is fully in production? Or do they have, they want to make sure the team is responsive to completing those stories on time? Are they looking at productivity? How much work do they actually accomplish in certain iteration or sprints? And also predictability. They don't want to predict the consistency of the team, how much work they complete as well. So these 4 factors are very important. For my organization, my boss or the director just want to focus on time to market, which is what? Productivity and also quality. So you might come in a sense whereby you guys have SQA team and all those other things. So that is where my own go-to is also. So quality and also productivity as well. So that's just what I want to chip in there. So.
Thank you for that, Chooks. That's a good way to stop. That's a good way. So as Chooks said, quality, productivity, responsiveness, and predictability. So when you get a job or as a Scrum Master, or you're already a working Scrum Master, I think these are actually good points you need to put in the back of your head. All right, so we'll move to retrospective. I'll hand over to Vicky. Vicky will take over from here.